and some of what we now have as social issues were introduced in those days to us as a people. And so our people fought long and hard. Over 80 years of violent, brutal resistance against the new slave master. A lot of them took off from the plantation and run to the hills. Now, as you know, this island is one of the islands that was first inhabited by Indians, which we call the Taino. When we were growing up, we call them Arawaks, but we learned after that Arawak was the language and Taino was the people. So the Taino were here, but they were not as strong as the Africans. They also were in slavery. At some time, the Caribs, some of them was, who they caught was in slavery, but a lot of them have villages established in the mountains. So when our African descendants who were brought here through slavery, some of them was captured on the sea by pirates. And because our people were creators, they were merchandisers, so they used to come freely on the sea. So they would capture their boats, their ships, sold them into slavery, and also take their goods. So Port Royal, I don't know if you hear of Port Royal, in those days it is over the sea, like you're going further from the airport in Kingston. If you continue that road, the end of it will be Port Royal. Now Port Royal was, as the history say, the richest and wickedest city in the world. Wickedest. Because the pirates lived there. And you know they do all kind of things. They would bet on a mother and say she has a boy inside, and someone else would say he's a girl, and they would cut the belly open to prove their point and to win their stake that they bet on it. So it is said to be the wickedest, but the richest city. It was destroyed in 1907 by an earthquake, and so many things sunk to the bottom of the sea. It still remains in a small part on your way past the airport that still is inhabited by people. And it's very rare because these people in Port Royal is like a different set of people from the Jamaica. They speak different, they look different. Some of them, you can see a mix of Caucasian and so, because many of them are children of the pirates still. And they have different names too. There are some names there that is not in any part of Jamaica. When you hear it, you know they are Port Royal, like the prawn. That's a surname. They are mostly, wherever you find a prawn, they are descendants from Port Royal. So, our city, our town, as they say, our motto is out of many, one people. We are a mixture of people because afterward, after slavery, the Chinese came as indentured workers and the Indians came from India as indentured workers, which you still have remnant descendants of Chinese here. You have the Jew, which many of the Jews were plantation owners at the time here. So you still have a large community of Jews. You have the Jewish synagogue. You have many Jew names of family that is still living in the island. So Jamaica is a melting pot, a mixture of culture. Which, you know, when you're saying something, you have to think about the other culture. And the other culture because they are all Jamaicans. So anyway, our resistance as the Maroons was long and hard and tedious. Out of it, we finally negotiated in 1738. The first treaty was signed in Jamaica, and the Maroon was given free land to live and have their own governance there. So in Jamaica, there are 5 free villages with different history. Each village still lives the history that they held on from those days. My village that I am from is in the eastern part of the island, the western part of the island, which is Trelawney Town. and Old Trelawney Town. And from there, in 1796, over 600 able people, including women and children, were sent off the island, transported into Nova Scotia, Halifax. Here they brought land and expressed them. But they couldn't take the cold. It wasn't their weather, climate, so they keep on negotiating. And this is my immediate village, my ancestors. And they sent some of them further from there into Cerro. And so they built a Maroon church here and they come up on freedom also. So we still have descendants. And we still have descendants in Nova Scotia. So we have this international, universal history that spread itself around. But the Maroon, in their fight, preserve a culture that has now become the culture of Jamaica, or our identity. There is still a remnant of languages from Africa. Because there was this suppression of the language, because the slave master was kind of wary as to not knowing what the slave was saying. So there was a suppression for them not to speak their language that they took with them from Africa, but to speak the English language. So they mixed the English language with the African language. And like some words, like for instance, we would not say eat, we would say nyam. I just nyam my dinner. Me I go nyam me dinner. I'm going to nyam my dinner, meaning I'm going to eat my dinner.
We also say nyam when we talk with children.
Nyam.
Nyam nyam.
Nyam.
Nyam nyam. Yeah, it's natural. Yes.
Nyam.
So those are some words that we retain, that we speak, and there are some words, some things, like for instance, I grew up with my mother making fufu. Now fufu is a meal from West Africa. So when I grow up, I see my mother making fufu from yam, making fufu from breadfruit, and it's a way of pounding down the food to a more palatable that you don't have to do all the chewing. Because the Africans said when you chew too much and you eat too much hard food that sometimes escape proper chewing, then you will age quickly because your organs overwork. You know, and when your organs overwork, you age quickly. So they love to pound their hard food. You know, we start eating some things here like dumpling, which is very hard, and we call them slave food. We developed these foods during slavery to survive. You know, so our history goes on and on and on. One of our most prominent, significant figure during the war was Nanny of the Maroons. As a woman, there's very limited documentation on her as to there's history of where she was from, like she was from West Ghana, she was Ashanti, but the exact date of her birth, we haven't come across it yet. It's still searching. But Nanny was a military, she was a military. And she was a priestess also. She was a spiritual. So she became the leader of her people during the oppression. And right here in this parish, in the Blue Mountain Hill, running from the British, way in the hill, I got the opportunity to go there when I did the documentary, which I was took in by the JDF helicopter. But it's a day walk, starting very early. Because a group of people walk while we take the plane, and it was a whole day walk. Like 9 o'clock in the night, we were still on the camping ground waiting for them to come. So it's a long walk, tedious walk, and it melts your heart to see the journey that a woman took to play her role, just to play her role. She became the mother of the nation, you know? And she was, in the British terms, she was called an Obia woman because of her intuition, because of how she used her powers, you know? At the same time, Obia was a religious practice that they bring here with them from Africa. Here in Jamaica, it's very connoted to be something very bad.
Very well.
Very bad. Very bad. Black magic business. But my experience of it is, it's a karma. You know, our people, we keep saying it. It's like an everyday living. What seed you sow, you will reap. Do good and good will follow you. If you do me good, you do yourself. You do me bad, you do yourself. That's some of the motto that goes with our traditional way of living. What seed you plant, you reap. You can't plant corn and want to reap peace. You know? So that's it. And so Christianity, that was one of the fights, because Christianity was used to control the slavery. After emancipation, even after what our people has been through, there was no treatment for all what they have taken and all what they become, you know, from going through this violent, traumatic experience of slavery. This was very brutal. I don't want to get into some part of it, I just want to keep going on a positive note. But it was brutal, you know what brutal is. So eventually, she herself was using of her spirituality, which as I say was connoted as phobia, that she was able to help her people. They used it to help them in the times of the war, and they also use it for healing. So Nani was very active as a priestess with the herbs. She was like in natural communication with the elements and the herbs. These things would commune with her. You know, the sun, the moon, the stars, she was in naturalness with the oneness of her. And that's how. Because I'll say the pyramid was built the same way the West here was won by our ancestors when they fought